Hello guys and welcome to a brand new video. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys Swordsoul, what I believe the best list is going into the Burst of Destiny format, the combos of this deck, the good and bad qualities of the deck, and I'll also be going over why I believe the Tenyi version is actually better than the Destroy Phoenix Enforcer version. So starting off, we're going to go over the list. We'll start with the Swordsoul monsters. We're going to be playing Free Moye, which is obviously the best normal summon in the deck. All you have to do for Moye is reveal one in hand, a worm or a Swordsoul card, so any of the Tenyis or Swordsoul. And then when it's used as the synchro material, it gets a draw, essentially a +2 because the synchro also gets you an add. We're going to be playing Free Moye as it's the best monster. There's Xiangjian, which is an insane card. All you have to do is discard for it and special the token as well from the hand, so this can't get veilered or impermed or anything like that, which is kind of nuts. This is good for making an early flare or a late flare, I guess, which is good to play around hand traps to make sure your combo can't get stopped. It's also good for making Duke, which is a very good card in some matchups, like in the virtual world matchup. Duke is insane. Anytime a card is banished, Duke banishes a card from field and graveyard. Let's say they go to use Xiangjian to reborn itself. Xiangjian reborns, and then this triggers the Duke, and it banishes a card on the field and a card in the grave. So you can get rid of the Xiangjian and another card, which is kind of nuts. You can also trigger this yourself with cards like the level 8 synchro and the Tenyis, which is really nice. There's also Tenyi. This Tenyi is like a very good card, but it's also very bricky, which is why we only play one of this card, because the only time you want to see this card is when you want to extend or for follow-up, or if your only engine card is Dragon Sword. By itself it does nothing, which is why it's bad. It needs one engrave, so if you have no setup it does absolutely nothing. But it does have a foolish burial effect when used as synchro, which basically lets you dump any of your worms, which means any of your Tenyis, which is very nice. Then we've got the Dragon Sword. Obviously this card is insane. Free Rhoda for all your Sword Souls. And if you have a synchro, you can add a Tenyi. Also, Dragon Sword is a 1-card combo if it's your only card, because you can search into Tenyi and then banish the Dragon Sword. Go into the 8. Spiritual Peak is a searchable reborn. You have to play at least one for follow-up. Turn 1, it's not the best, but there's never a point you really don't want to see it, but you definitely don't need more than 1 copy. 2 Sudden Shift. In the grind games, I feel Sudden Shift definitely needs to be at 2 copies, because in the grindy games, which this deck goes into a lot, because this deck doesn't really OTK if your opponent has interruptions, so having the ability to search a second Sudden Shift for the follow-up turn is very important, I believe. And turn 1, it doesn't matter if you open it, because it's fine if you open it. It's still a card that pops 2 of your opponent's cards. And instead of searching this with the level 8 synchro, you can search something like the Reborn, or you can search the Dragon Sword for follow-up. Ecclesia is basically 3 more copies of each of the Sword Souls. Well, Moye and Tenyi, I guess, because you don't really want a special Xiangjian off of Ecclesia, because it doesn't do anything. Then we have the Tenyi stuff. We playing free Ashuna, free Adhara, and 2 Vishuddha. We don't need free Vishuddha. It's bricky. It doesn't really do anything by itself. Adhara is the tuner. Has to be played. It also recycles back Tenyis from the banish pile, which is very nice. It can even recycle banished worms. That doesn't come up much, but it could come up. I'm not saying it won't. And Ashuna's obviously the crazy one. You special any Tenyi from your deck, which is usually either the Adhara or Vishuddha, but it does lock you into special summoning worms for the turn, which is why you can't play Destroy Phoenix Enforcer with this card, as they clash. And it's also why if you're gonna make Baroness, you gotta do that before you make the Ashuna. Vishuddha's obviously a crazy card, going second. When there's a non-effect monster, you bounce any card in the field. Out cards like Token Collector, Interruptions, Forces Back Row. Good card. Vessel is crazy. It dumps a Tenyi. And if you already have the monk or the one of the tokens, you can also add a Tenyi, which is kind of crazy. If you don't have like any Swordsoul engine, you can also dump a Swordsoul if you have like a reborn or a way to access the Baxia to reborn the Swordsoul and combo off that way. Desires +1, good card, and in this deck you don't really care about your deck after you combo. Obviously hand traps, Ash Veiler Imperm, the three most generic hand traps, the three best hand traps, the best ones to draw into from Moye anyway. Called by, a good card, one-off spot, stops hand traps. We're gonna move on to the extra deck now. So 2 Xiao, it never really gets to the point where you need to make 3 of this, so 2 is fine to play. So I believe 2 is optimal. 2 Baxia, this card is insane, and people who aren't playing the Tenyi version can't play this card, which is crazy. This card is so nuts. So when it's synchro summoned, you can target cards in the field up to the attributes used. So basically you can spin 2 cards when you synchro summon it, and then its second effect is you can pop one of your monsters and reborn a level 4 or lower. So you usually have monk on the field, so you can pop the monk and revive either Moye, Ecclesia, Taye, or Adhara, which you can use to go into a 9. So from this position you can go into stuff like Chaofeng, which stops your opponent from using light effects, so it stops them from nibbing you. It stops Drytron from playing the game at all. There's Xiangjian, a cracked card. Obviously you guys already know how good Xiangjian is. You can play it against Prank Kids if that deck's still around. Against Dragon Link it's pretty damn good. Its attack effect is actually really relevant because you can put your Tenyis back in grave, which is really nice. And the synchros are different types, and so are the hand traps, so you can just keep reborning this usually. So there's Yazi, this card is insane. You're usually able to make this by reducing your levels with Dragon Sword or the Reborn spell. That's also another way you can cheat out a 9, which is cool. So you can go into Yazi, which can't be targeted with your opponent's effects. Then you can use Yazi to pop a card on each field and then special a worm from your deck. So from there you can go into Swordsoul engine or just a Tenyi. Then you have Ruddy Rose, which is an insane card. When it's synchro summoned, it banishes all cards in the grave. So against like a Drytron player, that's like all of their extension just gone. And a cool thing is, like, if your Sudden Shift is banished, you can special a token. So it is nice if you can banish that off of the Ruddy Rose. Next we have Baroness, obviously. It just came out in Synchro Storm. Card is crazy. Soft once per turn, you can pop any card on the field. It can even pop your own cards, which is cool because it can trigger the Duke. Because when Duke would be destroyed, you can banish a card from your grave, which then triggers its effect. When a card is banished, you can banish a card from your opponent's field or grave. And obviously the best effect on the card, it's an Omni Negate, but it is a once while on the field effect. But once you use the negate in the standby phase, you can use its effect to reborn a level 9 or lower in your grave by returning this to the extra. So you can use this to like reborn a Moye or Taye for follow-up, even in Ecclesia. You can even just bring back the Xiao if it got outed, or like a Yazi. And I just realized I went over the Berserker, which is a decent level 8. I think it's the best level 8. I prefer this over the Adamancipator Synchro because Adamancipator Synchro's cool and all, but like all it does is stop a spell and trap, and like most of the good decks don't really rely on spell and traps that much anyway. Whereas Berserker banishes a monster, which I think is way more impactful in the meta. It also gets really big and can attack twice, which is really good if you're trying to OTK. Monk, obviously, I tested trying to run this at 2, but it's just not good enough. You need 3 copies for the grind game. This card is too good with the Tenyis. Shaman of the Tenyi, I tried to play without this because I didn't like the fact that you couldn't use other effects except Tenyis from the extra deck. But I realized that it does come up quite a bit, so it is needed in the extra deck. My side deck is Droll. We're really scared of the Drytron and Dragonlink matchups, so I think this is necessary for those decks. Twin Twisters for obviously the back row decks, the weird decks. Chalice I think is really good next format. It's good going both first and second against Tri Brigade, Drytron, even Dragonlink. It forces an interruption. It's good against Thunder. You can negate the barrier statue. Even in the mirror, you can get rid of like the Shao or the Flare negate. I just think this card is insane in the next meta. Talent, it's kind of a free spot for whatever card you like to play going first. I think Talent is the best card going first. It's a potential draw 2 and hand rip. And if they don't stop your combo, you're winning anyway, so like that's fine. And obviously the best card that is still legal in current Yu-Gi-Oh! Imperial Order. I don't know how this card dodged the ban list, but here we are. This card is insane. After you've used your spells in the first turn, we don't care. Flip order, win. And for the same reason, anti-spell. Most decks cannot play without spells, so this deck can easily play without spells, so we definitely need to run these cards. It would be stupid not to. I'm going to now go over some basic combos for you guys so you can understand how to play the deck a little better. Okay, so here we are. This is combo number 1. This is the 1 card Dragon Sword combo. It's kind of basic really. You use Dragon Sword, add the Taie. This is really bare bones. This is if you open no Tenyis, no Swordsouls or anything, just a single Dragon Sword. So you use the Taie, banish the Dragon Sword, summon the token, then you use both the token and the Taie to make either the Synchro 8, which is Chi Shao, or you can use the Dragon Sword to reduce the level of one of your monsters, and then you can go into a Xiangjian instead, which is really nice. And going second, you can opt to even go for the Yazi, which is a cool play. And you can go for the Baxia to spin 2 if you're going second, but like you're not really got anything to pop to Reborn, so it's kind of bad. After you've chosen what to synchro summon, you can use the Taie to dump a card from your deck, which if you've opened nothing is usually just the Ashuna. And then if you go for the Yazi, you can pop it, summon the Moye. If you have a, like, let's say you have 2 Dragon Sword in hand, reveal the Dragon Sword to summon the token and make the 8. Or you can go for the Adhara off of the Yazi, make a Monk, and then use the Ashuna to go for the Vishuddha. And then you can use the Adhara to add back the Ashuna. And then you go into the Shaman, which I was talking about earlier. And then you can use the Ashuna, discard, reborn the Taie, or you can even reborn the Yazi, as this is in fact a worm monster, so you can reborn this off of the Shaman, which is very nice. This is the combo you can go for if you open both Ashuna and Adhara and nothing else. So you can just go Ashuna special, just go into Monk, special the Adhara Ashuna effect, special the Vishuddha. Then you can use both to go for either Chi Shao or the Baxia. Chi Shao adds the trap. And if you go for the Baxia instead, what you can do is you can spin 2 cards of Baxia if you're going second. If not, you can just use the effect to pop the Monk and to revive the Adhara and then synchro both for the 9, which is the Xiangjian. So if you know that Xiangjian just kills your opponent's board, it's probably just best to make that. Now moving on to the 3rd combo, this is what you do if all you have is Ashuna and Vessel this time instead of the Adhara. So you can special the Ashuna, go for the Monk, activate Vessel. You can dump Moye or Taie. I prefer Moye because a draw is obviously insane. You add the Adhara, special Adhara, use Ashuna, special the Vishuddha. Then you can use the Vishuddha and Adhara to make the Baxia. Then you can use the Adhara to add back the Ashuna to get the Moye discard. Then you can use Baxia effect to Reborn, which brings back the Moye. Then you trigger Moye, revealing the added back Ashuna, special summoning the token. Then you can use both to go for the Chi Xiao, and then Chi Xiao's effect activates, and then you can chain Moye to chain block the Chi Xiao to stop an Ash or a Gamma, for example. Then you get to draw a card, Effect Veiler. This is why we play so many hand traps. The draw is just so good. Then Chi Xiao adds Sudden Shift. You can even just go for the Reborn spell for follow-up, or you can go for the Dragon Sword. Then you set one and you just pass. Moving on to the fourth combo. This is what you can do with a Dragon Sword, a Long Yon, and a discard for the Long Yon. So you start off with the Dragon Sword, adding the Moye or the Taiye, but obviously Moye is the best. Normal Moye, reveal the other card other than Long Yon to stop your opponent from knowing that you have Long Yon as follow-up. You summon the token, make the Chi Xiao, trigger the Chi Xiao, chain the Moye, get the draw, add the Spell and Trap, which in this case will be Sudden Shift, because that card is insane. Then we activate the Long Yon, discarding the fodder, summoning the token, and just making Baroness or Duke, depending on your matchup. Duke is really insane against Virtual World, as I said earlier, because when a card is banished, triggers Duke's effect. You can also trigger this yourself with the Chi Xiao, because you have to banish a card to negate a monster effect with Chi Xiao. Or you can trigger it with the Sudden Shift, because when Duke would be destroyed, you can banish a card in your grave instead, which triggers its effect. I think Duke is honestly kind of crazy. But obviously going blind into a matchup, it's mostly safest to just go for the Baroness. It's an Omni Negate, and it's good for follow-up because you can tag it out into something in your grave. This is the last combo I'm going to be showing in this video. This is where you kind of just open Insane. Let's say you have a Tenyi, Sudden Shift, Dragon Sword. So you add the Long Yon off the Dragon Sword, special the Vishuddha, activate the Long Yon. Basically for this, all you needed was the fodder for the Long Yon, and this is just to show that you have 6 copies of the Long Yon in your deck. So what you can do here is summon the token and synchro for the Ruddy Rose Dragon. Let's say like you're in the grind game, you just want to out all the resource in the Drytron player's grave, so you can go for Ruddy Rose here and banish all the cards in the graves, which is like all the resources Drytron have. So you can use the Ruddy Rose Dragon, banish everything, but because you banish the spell and the Sudden Shift, you can trigger their effects. So Dragon Sword lets you lower the level of your Vishuddha, and Sudden Shift summons a level 4 tuner token. So you do both of these, you make the Vishuddha a level 6, and you summon the token, and now you can go for another 10. So you can go for either the Duke or you can go for the Fleur. Obviously, I think in like an open game state, the Fleur might probably be better because it's an Omni Negate and it pops another card on the field. It really gets rid of everything your opponent has after the Ruddy Rose. But Duke is also insane depending on the matchup. Its effect in a slow game state is cracked. But Baroness, obviously, it's just a really good card in the end. That is basically it for the combos and the deck list. Obviously, there's a lot of combos, so I can't go through everything. That would be like a 30-hour video going through every little play that you could possibly go for. This deck is really, it really changes with your hand and the board state and the matchup really, so you can't really say for sure what combos you should be going for. And I think these are some very good basic combos you should know for matchups. Now this is like an early days pre-test for Bode. It's not the most perfect list. Like I don't agree with crossout designator that much anymore, but I just feel the Destroy Phoenix Enforcer build is just not good enough. Like, I guess you can say the argument Ecclesia is crazy in this build because you can extend with Ecclesia going second by specialing it and not having to worry about the Ashuna locking you into worms. I guess you could say Destroy Phoenix Enforcer is a crazy card. I mean, obviously it is a crazy card, but is it the best in this? Like, playing this build stops you from playing Baxia, which is insane. You can't make any of the level 9s anymore. You can't go for the Yazi. There's no Shaman to help you extend anymore. It's just kind of like, oh, I got nibbed, I guess I just make Verte. What? You have one pop? That sucks. This list just doesn't do as good as the Tenyi build. It doesn't have as many extenders. It doesn't have as much engine. It's just lackluster, really, in my opinion. I think people will realize that very quick going into the format, that the Tenyi build is slightly better than this build. But I guess you could just say, just open good, lol. Yeah, okay. I guess you could say Celestial is a crazy card, which obviously I agree with. You could say Ecclesia can recur itself when the Enforcer goes to grave, which is admittedly a very good interaction. I just don't think it's the best. I think Tenyi build is slightly better and has slightly more advantages to the Destroy Phoenix Enforcer build. Playing this build really just like limits your options in the end. But yeah, obviously don't play this build for the Destroy Phoenix Enforcer build because this is not refined. This was just something I was testing in the early days, and I didn't really like the Destroy Phoenix Enforcer build. It has the same amount of engine cards it would usually have, and I just felt it bricked a lot. Like a lot. Yeah, I mean, the Destroy Phoenix Enforcer build is fine, I guess, but I just think the Tenyi build is slightly better. Well, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my takes, my deck list, and the combos I showed you guys here today. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and catch me in the next video. See ya.
I wanna see you in slow motion. Come stay the night, we can stay up till it's bright in the morning, got the top open.